It's about the view. It's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. It's like it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that. But The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. How can you now speak the truth when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were.
Sunny Hostin just found out the hard way that wading into the comedic blast zone of Greg Gutfeld and Cat Timpf Farm solely with moral outrage isn't just risky. It's televised self-destructs in real time. This wasn't a spirited exchange. It was a comedic autopsy, and Hostin was the body on the slab. Gutfeld and Timpf didn't even need to share screen space. With further sarcasm from afar landed like drone strikes. The roast was so precise, it could be displayed in a museum of satire. Even Joy Behar looked like she was reconsidering her seat at the table. When the rhetorical dust settled, the question remained, what triggered Hostin's on-air unraveling? Let's break down the carnage that left morning TV clutching its coffee in stunned silence.
Once.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has? 31.
31 Emmys?
This show has 31. I mean, I'd hate to see the conversations that don't make headlines.
It started like any other week on The View. The daytime ritual where opinions get served with a heavy pour of virtue, and the table doubles as a confessional booth. Sunny Hostin, the show's resident legal sage, was exuding her usual brand of serene intellect, but behind the glossy takes and choreographed gravitas, a cultural tremor was rumbling. Without warning, the Gutfeld camp dropped a comedy missile not by direct attack, but with a roast so scorching it lit up cable news without ever naming names. And by the time Sunny realized she was in the crosshairs, the damage was already spreading.
Finally shows me some lovin'. Yesterday on The View, yours truly was the subject of conversation. Apparently the broads have no idea who I am, or so they say. Hit it, Gladys.
They said that Gutfeld talks about you all the time.
Who is he?
Really, who is he? I don't watch the show.
He has a show.
I don't watch the
never
show.
heard of him.
Yeah.
I guess he's just obsessed with me.
No. Next, Joy's gonna say she's...
This wasn't a verbal skirmish, it was an ambush cloaked in punchlines. A comedy blitzkrieg packed with satire, sniper-grade sarcasm, and surgical dismantling. There was no back and forth, no live rebuttal, just Gutfeld and Timpf launching irony from the comfort of their set, and watching it detonate right in the middle of Hostin's well-curated persona. The sanctimony of daytime collided head-on with the scorched earth of late night. Satire and the aftermath wasn't pretty. The View was blindsided. Sunny was shaken. But the audience, they were more than ready for the show.
Me is as believable as her red hair. But obsession? I mean, come on, Joy. Where would you even get that idea? Like Joy Behar's face, it's looking worse and worse by the day. More full of crap than Joy Behar after a night of scotch at Taco Bell. Her being named Joy is like me being named ugly. Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. It now smells like a humid day inside Joy Behar's moo-moo. And the motives stink worse than Joy Behar's jog bra. I mean, assuming she jogs. Oh, wait, there she is.
Gutfeld and Timpf pulled off their satire strike with the finesse of veteran medics and a humorer. Cat, armed with bone-dry wit sharp enough to dehydrate a rainforest, dismantled Hostin's grandiose takes with a smile that said, "Honey, you really believe this?" She didn't yell or argue, she laughed. And that laugh was a scalpel. Meanwhile, Gutfeld, forever the master of satirical mayhem, conducted the whole scene like a deranged maestro waving a baton forged from mockery. As the climax built, Sunny, the once untouchable oracle of The View's moral theater, found herself the reluctant lead in a comedy roast she didn't even audition for.
Hit myself in the face so I can feel something. It's like so boring. He's like, yeah, I like Instacart, but don't worry, I tip the pours. But, Joy, you actually don't like Instacart and you do like the store. And then Joy is like, yeah, I do. I like to go to the store. I like to walk around and see what's at the store, what I do want, what I don't want. Maybe I want tuna fish, and I just want to.
Sunny didn't break down crying. There was no melodramatic storm-off. No misty-eyed monologue, but the cracks showed in subtler, more captivating ways. It was an emotional collapse. It was an erosion of confidence, a slow-motion implosion. Her tone tightened. Her speech is stretched. What used to be commanding silence now read as spinning wheels of uncertainty. And the biggest giveaway, she began sounding like someone trying to reassure herself rather than convince anyone else. When your signature gravitas starts becoming the punchline, every solemn pause feels like a parody. It wasn't one joke that did it, it was the creeping realization that she was the joke and never saw it coming.
That they didn't know what this show was?
No, I'm also not surprised that there's one part of the video from the show yesterday that you left out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, can we roll that, please?
I don't watch the show that much, but I've seen it.
Who is that? Who is that?
Greg Gutfeld's one of the hosts of The Five, who, if I don't have anything nice to say, I generally don't say anything at all. I would just say this, his show should be called Cat Timpf, not Gutfeld, because she's the funny one on it.
Somebody's flirting with little cat over here.
Well, she's the Republican one at the table, but I just think as a libertarian, I'm always looking to find common ground with other people because nobody really shares my politics. So I find some common ground in the view where she thinks I'm funny and I agree.
What made it all the more brutal was how little effort it took. Timpf didn't launch into some grand takedown. She offered a smirk and a sideways glance, and it hit like a haymaker. Her eyebrow raised with surgical precision, and that syrupy bless your heart laugh sparkled with venom. She didn't just go after Sunny's arguments, she clowned the entire ideology they rest on. Meanwhile, Gutfeld handled the cleanup not with debate, but with the full-on post-mortem of media's obsession with posing as profound. Sunny never stepped foot in their ring, but somehow still wound up face down on the canvas. And when it was all over, nothing. No tweets, no trademark moral monologues, just a silence that buzzed with humiliation. Sometimes the loudest response is none at all.
View over his name, prompting Musk's child to exclaim, "Daddy, I didn't know hippos could talk." Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
That's when it shifted the slow, strangely satisfying collapse you could practically feel in the air. Her tone faltered. The delivery that once oozed certainty now wobbled under pressure. She leaned harder into her law-degree persona, clutching at facts that sounded more like self-help affirmations than hard points. And the internet, it pounced. TikTok turned her expressions into reaction content. YouTube channels deconstructed her cadence like it was a crime scene. Twitter memed her pauses into punchlines. She wasn't just roasted, she was downsized. No need for rebuttals. The vibe had shifted, and everyone felt it. The unshakable presence had been shaken, and it was written all over her face.
Look tantalizing. You know, I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered.
3 years, that's when I discovered Instacart. And I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well. And it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds.
This wasn't just a drag on Sunny Hostin, it was a full-on challenge to the whole temple of daytime sanctimony she symbolizes. The Gutfeld squad didn't just dismantle her argument. They toppled the pulpit it was preached from. The twist? Sunny isn't foolish. She's sharp. And that's what made it all so painfully hilarious. She thought sincerity was a shield. That polish made her untouchable. But satire doesn't bounce off earnestness, it thrives on it. The more grave and self-serious the target, the juicier the takedown. And as Gutfeld's crew pivoted to their next comedic victim, Sunny stayed planted at her familiar table, coffee in hand. While the rhetorical wreckage still smoldered behind her, comedy had breached the sanctum not as a guest, but as the new host.
But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now the View could ask Amir who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that Glass doesn't.
What made the hit land so hard was the complete lack of need for a reply. There were no rebuttals, just laughter, echoing louder than any comeback could. Sunny tried to brush it off, but you can't strut your way out of a satire sinkhole. Her defenders popped up online, posting hashtags and heartfelt think pieces, but the crowd already knew. There's nothing more comical than watching someone clutch at dignity, while sliding face first into irony. It wasn't a personal attack, it was a universal takedown. When your brand is built on being the unflappable adult in the room, even the tiniest crack becomes a comedic avalanche. And that's how Sunny found herself immortalized not as a sage, but as the embodiment of confidence undone by clever ridicule.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Like you said, it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say in The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being.
And the kicker, they never once said her name. That's how devastating the satire was. Gutfeld and Timpf just held up a mirror and Sunny ran to it, stared herself down, and started arguing with her own reflection. That's the funny thing about ego. No one has to accuse you for you to feel attacked. Timpf's tone was broad, casual, tossed off with a wink, but it hit close enough to home to sting like truth. No one pointed fingers, but Sunny jumped in anyway, like a guilty conscience in heels. Her reaction wasn't demanded, it was volunteered. She stumbled into the fire yelling, "How dare you?" when no one had even lit a spark. That's the final twist. She wrote the punchlines for them by taking the bait they never even offered.